Welcome back inside the Now Morning Show. So happy to have you here with us. I hope you got your tea, you got your coffee, and you're relaxed and ready for some information because we have your spotlight on now with Kimberly De Souza. All right, Kimberly, take it away.
African swine flu.
African swine flu.
So I don't know, well, African swine fever, actually. So we're going to see exactly how we can work on that. Because, of course, a growing concern for the farming community is the African swine fever. Now, this highly contagious and deadly disease can affect both wild and domestic pigs. But what causes it? Can it be transmitted to humans? And what does this mean for pork consumers? Well, this and other concerns will be addressed by the president of the TNT Veterinary Association and founder of the Tobago Animal Hospital, Dr. Paul Crooks. Dr. Crooks, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I know it's not your first time, and it's always a pleasure having you. I know that we're going to switch gears this morning and talk about the African swine fever. So first of all, tell us exactly what that is.
African swine fever can be defined as a very fatal, rapidly spreading disease of pigs and pig-related animals.
So pigs and pig-related animals. All right. So then
Yeah.
what causes it? Is it something that they eat in their feed? How is it transmitted, among these animals?
So African swine fever can be transmitted in several ways. In countries where African swine fever persists, there may be certain species of ticks that can transmit the organism. It's caused by a virus. The ticks can move the virus from animal to animal and can maintain the disease in a wild animal population. In countries where the disease is endemic, so African swine fever is a relatively commonly occurring disease, and it's not one that they try to get rid of. In those countries, it tends to be that the virus persists in wild pig-type animals. So in Trinidad and Tobago, we have the wild boar, commonly called the quenk. So the equivalent to the quenk in these endemic countries would maintain a wild form of African swine fever virus that when it gets to the domestic pigs can affect them. And then how does it move from that wild pig to the domestic pig? That would be through any body fluids, body secretion. So you may have vomiting, diarrhea, anything that comes out from the mouth, saliva, blood, respiratory secretions if the animal coughs or sneezes. All of those particles may contain the virus. Additionally, and very importantly, the feeding of animals, the feeding of uncooked or untreated pork products to pigs. So for example, some countries and some smaller farm production systems practice feeding of swill, so-called swill, to pigs, where they take discards from restaurants or from supermarkets and so on, and they feed the animals. Effectively, they're feeding refuse, garbage. And the thing about that practice is if there's uncooked or undercooked pork products from contaminated pigs or infected pigs, that meat can be the source of transmission. And that, in fact, is a very important way that the disease can move from country to country. Because if you visit your friend now we have African swine fever in the Dominican Republic, if you visit your friend there and somebody presents you with some homemade pork product from their friend who slaughtered a pig down the road, that pork product, if you then fly back to Trinidad and Tobago with that pork product sandwich or so in your bag, and then customs doesn't detect it and you don't declare it, which is why we ask people to declare any biological products that they may bring. If you don't declare that and you carry the pork product home and now you realize, oh, this sandwich smells real off, I know I need this. So you toss it and you have pigs, you toss it for your pigs. That's how the virus may move from the Dominican Republic to here. Right. So the concern with African swine fever is that fresh or uncooked or undercooked meat can transmit the virus, one. And two, we also have right now a lot of smuggling happening in Trinidad. we have animals that are coming across on pirogues and on various other vessels at various ports of entry, by far more numerous than we can man and examine. And so we have small ruminants, we have cattle, and we have pigs that are coming in from other countries illegally. Many of the farmers who are purchasing these animals are aware that they're purchasing illegal animals or illegally smuggled animals.
Now, Dr. Crooks, quickly, and I just have to ask at this point, are we at risk in Trinidad for getting that African swine fever? And also, are there any cases at this present time?
Right now in Trinidad and Tobago, there aren't, because if there were cases, it would be all over the news and everybody would know it.
Yes.
It would basically be a death sentence for our pork industry. So we really do not want it here because of how transmissible it is, one, how contagious it is, and two, because it has such a super high case fatality rate. So it's not one of those diseases where maybe we'll lose 50% of our pigs. Because our pigs are naive and have never been exposed, if we do have African swine fever here, if it does come, it's very likely going to cause mortality close to 100%.
Wow.
So nearly every pig would be lost. The pigs that die, they may have very high temperatures, they may have vomiting and diarrhea. Typically what you see is this sort of blue or purple discoloration of the skin. There are other diseases that can cause that or look like that, like salmonellosis here in Trinidad and Tobago. We do have that disease, and you may see about 50% of pigs who are weaning, so they're being moved from their mother and separated in a different pen. About 50% of those pigs may die from salmonellosis if you have a salmonellosis outbreak. So that can mimic sometimes African swine fever, swine erysipelas, which causes blotchy red lesions on the skin. That can also look like African or classical swine fever, but swine fever has this very high mortality. That's the distinguishing factor. So you're looking at close to 100%. Also, the ages, and there's no age restriction. Any age of pig that is naive will die, basically, from exposure to African swine fever.
Now, Dr. Crooks, one of the things you mentioned is that we need to almost stop it from coming through our borders, right? So maybe if it is you're coming through customs, you need to declare that sort of things. I mean, what other things can we do to prevent the African swine fever from ever coming to our shores?
This is where education is really important. We had a meeting here last night with the Tobago Integrated Livestock Association, and I explained to them the risk of purchasing animals from untrustworthy sources. Many farmers are aware that they're purchasing an animal, the price is too good to be true. Or when they're purchasing the animal wasn't bred here. They're asking the farmer, their source, where did this animal come from? What's happening with the animal? What's the history? I don't know the history. The animal may be stolen, the animal may be smuggled in. Purchase animals from trustworthy sources. We want to discourage the smuggling of animals entirely. As long as there's a market for the purchase of smuggled animals, people will continue to smuggle animals because we cannot man all of the little pirogues and so on that come here. We know that we have refugees and so on that come, but when they bring the animals, we have no idea what diseases they're bringing with them. So we are discouraging farmers from participating in the illegal livestock trade. We are also encouraging any viewer, regardless of your profession, please do not bring pork or pork products into Trinidad and Tobago from any other country. Trinidad and Tobago is one country. You could fly from Trinidad to Tobago with whatever you want, but if you're coming from any other country, please do not bring pork or pork products to Trinidad and Tobago.
Dr. Crooks, you also mentioned that refuse or that garbage that sometimes they feed these animals. Is there an ideal sort of diet that you should give to pigs to ensure that they stay healthy and to prevent them from getting this disease?
That's a very good question. Farmers know because pigs are omnivores, they can eat just about anything. So farmers, that's why they opt for the feeding of the garbage or the refuse. And farmers know that there are commercial diets and feed preparations that are perfectly adequate and balanced for pigs. You do not need to feed anything other than commercial diets. However, the cost involved is why farmers would say, well, I can't afford to be buying a bag of feed every 2 weeks for my pigs, for example. So in such an instance, farmers want to feed whatever they could find. We tell farmers here in Tobago, I tell farmers, you can feed fruits and vegetables from your yard, from your environment, mangoes, pawpaw, whatever you have growing around. Those are absolutely fine to feed. The issue comes where you're getting the feed from an unknown source. So when a restaurant just scrapes things into a garbage or a pile and then you feed that, that's where the doubt comes in. So if you are able to say that this food is of a sufficient quality as a farmer, then absolutely by all means go ahead. But generally, you can get away with just feeding the bag feed. In fact, that is what is recommended.
Now, you also mentioned as well, I mean, if unfortunately, we actually have a case here, it's going to spread rapidly, it's going to be 100% wipeout. I mean, what does that say for the industry? Is it that we will now need to import pork? I mean, how is that circle, going to happen if, forbid, we actually do have that here?
So this disease is one of those that is classified as a notifiable disease. We basically have in vets our own World Health Organization. It's called the World Organization for Animal Health. And this is one of those diseases that we must report as a member country of the World Organization for Animal Health. And the reason is because of its devastating impacts on the industry. So basically, we may end up with a situation where we have to wipe out our entire population. It means that food prices are going to go up substantially. Large producers who produce pork locally tend to have relatively isolated systems and have good, what we call biosecurity measures, where people have to wash up to get in, they have to wear outfits that belong on that farm if they're going onto the farm, and when they're coming out, they wash up again. Those biosecurity measures can be implemented and can limit or prevent spread. But in addition to the blood secretions and so on, and in addition to the ticks, in addition to the uncooked meat and pork, you can also carry the virus on your boot or on the tires of your truck when you move from one farm to another. And this is why those biosecurity measures are very important. If we do have an African swine fever case here, by the time it is detected, the question would be, where did the farmer go after going to this farm and dealing with his pigs? Did he then go to the supermarket with the boots from the farm? Did he interact with his neighbor who also has pigs? And by the time we start to trace back and follow where this infectious organism may have gone, it may be at the point where 50% of farms are already affected. So it will be devastating for the pork industry.
Now, I have to ask quickly, Dr. Crooks, because I know we're almost out of time. Does this have any effect on humans at all? Because I was listening to how you're saying, you would need to do that contact tracing as we have done with COVID-19, right? To find out exactly where this farmer went and try to track exactly who might be affected. So is there any way at all this may have a negative effect on humans?
Thankfully, as of right now, no. And there's been no evidence at all to support that. So this has no zoonotic potential.
Okay, good. And Dr. Crooks, if anybody needs to reach you or any more information about the African swine fever, any sort of information you'd like to share, maybe a website, social media handles?
Yes, please. You can call the office of the Tobago Animal Hospital for any further questions at 239-7837.
Good. Dr. Crooks, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and do have a great day in Tobago.
You too. Take care.
And that was Dr. Paul Crooks, the TNT president, actually, of the TNT Veterinary Association, president and founder, and also founder of the Tobago Animal Hospital, just sharing about the African swine fever. You're on the Now Morning Show. We're going to take a break and be right back. Stay with us.